don't know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Bring me the cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room the last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say that you have had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you would let me know. I've been right in front of records to Scotland Yard. And I was very nearly off in a large war.
I wish you would. I happen to be more than... more than usually hard up.
Well, there is no good offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
That is very mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, now that I've looked at the inscription inside, I see the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times. You have no right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
Oh, it is absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of modern culture is made up of what one should read.
Quite aware of the fact. And I don't propose to discuss modern culture. It isn't the sort of thing one should talk of in private. I simply want my cigarette case.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily. And you said you knew no one of that name.
Well, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes. Charming old lady she is too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me, Elgin!
Yes, but why does she call herself Little Cecily if she's your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with the fondest love!
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? And that is a matter that Shirley and aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that everyone should be exactly like yours. That is absurd. For heaven's sake, give me back my cigarette case.
Yes? But why does your aunt call you her uncle? From Little Cecily, with her fondest love, to a dear Uncle Jack. There's no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small. But why not, no matter what her size may be, she call her own uncle, her own nephew, her uncle? I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all, it is Ernest.
Yes, it's Jack.
You haven't always told me your name was Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You look as if your name were Ernest. You're the most earnest-looking person I ever saw in my life. It's absurd you're saying that your name isn't Ernest. It's on your cards. Here's one. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4 the Albany. I'll keep this as proof that your name is Ernest. In case you ever tried to deny it to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Aunt in town, in Jack in the country. The cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that doesn't account for the fact that your little Aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, should call you her dear uncle. Come on, boy. You should have the whole thing out at once.
My dear fellow, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It is better also to talk like a dentist. One isn't a dentist, it produces a false impression.
Well, that is exactly what dentists always do. Now, go on. Tell me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, shall I do it?
I may mention, I've always suspected you of being a Bunburyist, and now I'm quite sure of the fact.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by a Bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that most incomparable expression as soon as you're kind enough to inform me why you're Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now, produce your explanation. And pray, make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there's nothing improbable at all about my explanation. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her uncle, for motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate. It was in my place in the country, under the charge of an admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You're not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly that the place is not in Shropshire.
I suspected that, my dear fellow. I've Bunburied all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Alfie, I don't know whether you will be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one must adopt a high moral tone in all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. And as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce very much to one's health or one's happiness. In order to get up to town, I've always pretended to have a younger brother of the name of Earnest, who lives in Albany and gets into the most dreadful straits. That, my dear Alfie, is the whole truth, clear and simple.
The truth is rarely clear and never simple. Modern life would be rather tedious if it were either. In modern literature, a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't be at all a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not your forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. You should leave it to the people who haven't been at a university. They do it so well in the daily papers. What you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you're a Bunburyist. You're one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean by that?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Earnest, in order that you might come up to town whenever you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I might go down to the country whenever I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. Why, if it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willis's, for I've been really engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know. It's very careless you're not sending out any invitations. Very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people so much as not receiving an invitation.
You would much better dine with Aunt Augusta tonight.
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. In the first place, I dine there on Monday. And once a week is quite often enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I'm sat down with either no woman at all, or 2. And in the third place, I know perfectly well whom she will place me next to. She will place me next to Mary Fauquon, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. It is not very pleasant. In fact, it is not even decent. And that sort of thing is immensely on the increase. The amount of women who flirt with their own husbands in London is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It's merely washing one's clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to tell you the rules.
I am not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolyn accepts me, then I'm going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily is a little too much interested in him. It is rather a bore. So I'm going to get rid of Ernest. And I strongly advise you to do the same with Mr. With what invalid friend who has the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if ever you get married, which seems to me extremely problematic, you'll be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolyn, and she is the only girl I ever saw in my life that I would marry, I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realize that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That, my dear young fellow, is the theory that the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
And that the happy English home has proved in half the time.
For goodness sake, don't try to be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
My dear boy, it isn't easy to be anything nowadays. There's such a lot of beastly competition about. That must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I get rid of her for 10 minutes in order that you might have an opportunity of proposing to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you at Willis's tonight?
I suppose so. If you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It's so shallow of them.
Lady Bragdon is Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope that you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
It's not quite the same thing. As a matter of fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I am always smart. Aren't I, Mr. Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I am not that. It would leave no room for developments. And I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we are a little late, Algernon. I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I've not been there since her poor husband's death. I've never seen a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger.